Hey everyone, it's Brandon, and I'm back with another video after playing 10 games with the team, and this time around it is Scouts. If you couldn't tell by the thumbnail, something's wrong and I need to work on my skills. This is what got voted on at the end of Crute, and at the end of this video, I'll talk about the team that's coming up next for this series. But before we get into that, I want to give a shout out to my patrons over on Patreon, and anyone that likes this video for taking the time to watch it. Thank you all. Hope it really helps you in your experience in this game. The voting for what team I play is done. I haven't announced that it's done, but it is. And if you want to get your vote in next series, you can check out my Patreon link in the description to get access to my Discord-only channel. Or if you just want to access the written bat reps I have, they're all over there for free, so go check it out. But enough about that. Let's get into this team. So I'm going to change up the ordering of this a bit, and we're going to go over... I have notes. I promise I have notes on this. I'm not just rambling. So I'm going to go over my games real quick before I go into the operatives, the ploys, tac ops, and equipment. And I'll give a little rundown of what the team can really do in your early game setup. So let's break it down. Game 1 and 2 are going to get lumped together. They were into Exaction and Novitiates respectively. Both games were played on Beta Decima. And if it seems like I'm sort of skipping these games, you're right. Kind of am. It's more about Beta Decima than about Scouts. Scouts have climbing ropes, and they have ways to ignore obscurity. Novitiates and Exaction Squad do not have either of those things, and that's just sort of a Beta Decima problem. It's not about Scouts. So if your team has those things, you win those games, and that wasn't that interesting outside of that. But this video isn't about Beta Decima, so 2 wins for Scouts. Let's push on. Game 3 was into Blooded, and this game exemplifies my issues with this team really badly. The reliability to put down a model on paper is amazing, but it's never a perfect setup. It's always in question, and it has to be combined with other resources to even bring down 7-8 win models. I had Initiative, I had 3 APL, I Activate, and I have Balance Rerolls. Come around a corner, put down the Grenadier, which anyone face Blooded knows that guy can be a monster. Pay a CP to shoot the shotgun again with Balanced, and failed to kill the Chieftain. So he lives, even with 2s Balanced, 3 hits, 2 saves, and he lives with 3 health because the Grenadier had blown up for a mortal wound. This is an issue because the Blooded Chieftain turns around with Gaze of the Gods on his plasma pistol and deletes that scout, and then moves into a position where I can't get to him. And then the next turn he comes out and blasts the scout. And that's 2 scouts to 1 model that should have been dead or could have been dead. And the math is not even that great for it. It's just that 17% chance that edge case that just completely crushes a flank. That's all it takes. On paper it's amazing, but every once in a while you just don't get through. You don't quite punch through. Same into elves. People are like, oh, the shotguns are great into elves and dwarves. And then they make 3 of their saves. And then Harlequins have Prismatic Blur or their Tragedy up or both. And they make the 1 4-up save they live. And even a 4-hit shotgun only does 4 damage. And then that Harlequin goes and kills 2 scouts on accident. This happens in so many matchups. And the team is not flexible enough to counter it. This just going into an 8-win model with even a 5-up save, they make 2 and you're just feeling SOL. You make 3 and you just literally can't kill the thing. So you end up feeling like you're playing Exaction without the Subductors instead of playing Marines that are 1 step away from getting their Intercessor armor, their Infiltrator armor, whatever you want to call it. Game 4 was into Exaction, speaking of. On Into the Dark, my opponent respected my shooting, but with the 3-up armors and rerolls to the save that they get, I don't think they need to. They also respected the booby trap, which I'll go over in a minute, and didn't really get them into the melee that they need to, because scouts, the shotguns are cool, but they only have 3 attacks. And so anything with 4 attacks can shut that down real quick, especially if you double parry. They become very, very hard to suppress. Game 5 into Pathfinders was also on Into the Dark, and this is also going to be skipped a little bit. This game highlighted the strength of stealth relocation. It's a strategic ploy. I'll go over it later, and I'll tell you why it's very, very good. But the TLDR of this is do not give blast attacks, especially on Into the Dark. Frag grenade in this matchup killed 5 operatives and took another one down to 1 health on a single flank by itself. And that, I don't care. You lose 5 operatives. I don't care what team you're playing. You're probably losing that game. That was such a hard flank to lose. It was really rough. So, going into Game 6, this was into Phobos, and this was one of the most fun games of the series that I had. This matchup with my opponent was super back and forth and very chess PC to me. I still feel if they just go 4 Reavers and then the Marksman and the Veteran for shooting backup, they just decimate Scouts because your melee can't melee their Reavers. And then the Reavers double charge and double kill. Just even your guys with combat blades, they don't care. Yeah, that's just how that feels. So, but it was a lot of fun. The Reavers can go toe-to-toe with your Sergeant. Yeah, yours hits on 2s, but if you double strike when you start, it doesn't matter. You're only getting hit once before you kill them. Their pistols are also really scary. AP1 bolt pistols tears through 4-up armor, no problem. So they're also very sneaky, so they can avoid a lot of the heavy bolter interactions, which the heavy bolter double firing is so much of your strength of this team. I'll go over that operative in a little while. So Phobos was an interesting game. Game 7 into Corsairs. This seems like a neat matchup. It's really not. Corsairs are just too fast. They're too flexible. They go, oh, you're going to put 5 guys over there? Neat. These 3 over here are dead, and I've lost 1 model. Epic. They're just so fast. The alpha in this game wasn't even that good. I could have lost 3 operatives turn 1. And it's such a rough match. They outspeed you. You're trying to be Phobos, and your speed is just not on par. Game 8 in the Kroot on open. I feel like Kroot have a really good matchup into Scouts. They do need to be on the ball with their APL economy because Scouts is a 20 APL team. And once you surpass that, you're in a really good spot. The other part that I feel is super in favor of Kroot is 1-to-1 trades. But Kroot don't trade 1-to-1 in shooting at all for anything. But 5 attacks on those dogs, and you only have 3 attacks on your shotgun boys, means that unless you have 3 APL, they outrange you with bound. So they just charge you from wherever you are. And a dog kills a shotgun boy every single time. The dog can double charge, kill a scout marine in combat, and just be sitting there on 4 health and be fine because you only have 3 attacks. It's really nasty. So, I don't know. I think that if Kroot just take 2 dogs, they just win that match because they just trade a dog for a shotgun each. And now it is a 10-on-6 matchup, 10-on-7 matchup. I don't know. Seems interesting. Game 9 was into Felgar and open. And I did win this game, but this game felt like pulling teeth. I killed 4 goats from a position where they were not able to charge and kill a marine. 4. As in, they activate and they just remove themselves from the table. And it still was like a 2-point game. This game was brutal. I was doing everything I could. I used the bolter leader with the bolter with no cover hitting on 2s into their 5-up saves means you reliably put damage down to a goat or bring them down to 2-3 health. My dice were just a little bit warm, so I was rolling a crit, and the crit goes through to push 10 damage. And then he just can move to a point and double fire and just rain hell on that team. But even with that, it didn't feel Scout favorite at all. It was a very close game. Game 10 into Colts on Into the Dark. I know I didn't take enough combat knives this game, but it doesn't feel like it matters. Sickening Aura, you hit on 4s with a reroll, and they're hitting on 4s with Ceaseless. And between the 6-up Philippine and having to roll a crit in order to even threaten to kill, because you have 4 hits. Even if you have 4 hits, if they have 1 hit, they parry, and you struggle to kill the operative. And that's just into the mutants, let alone the torments. As soon as they're a torment, they just wreck you. you don't have an answer for them. They go 4-up armor into your shotguns. They block 8 damage, take 8 damage, and take 6 of it, 7 of it, and then they kill that scout and another scout. It's really rough. It just gets outclassed really hard. This was on capture, and I don't think secure or loot makes this matchup even remotely better. This was by far the biggest blowout, and I was happy to see it because throughout my games at the start, I was feeling like this team is one of the worst in the game, and I've retracted that since. But this team is not great at all. We'll go over a couple of the reasons why moving through this, but let's get into that. So like I said, after 10 games, I ended up with 7 wins, 3 losses, which should also be on the thumbnail. Pretty good. But before I give a final summary of the team, let's go over what the team has for ploys and strats and stuff. So the strategic ploys, these feel like Phobos light things. And the easiest way to compare it is a lot of Phobos feel without the buffs that Phobos got. So you're just not quite scouts is what this team feels like. So the buffs, you have Blade Ambush and Gunfire Ambush, which when you go from Conceal to Engage, you get a buff. You get either balanced or you get a crit in melee for your knives. But the crit or the Wormblade Cult Ambush rerolls for the Gunfire only triggers if they've already activated, when normally you're trying to remove assets that have not activated during the turn. So this team wants to counterpunch but cannot take a punch because they die in melee to operatives, to real melee operatives. So I'm not sure how to utilize that. Now I'm going to go over a strategic ploy that is useless. This thing is trash. This is Guerrilla Engagement. It is a cover reroll when you're getting shot at from more than 6 inches away. So you have to be in cover. If you get shot with something that has no cover, that's fine. You still get the reroll. But you have to be, one, you have to be in cover. 2, you have to be getting shot at from more than 6 inches away. 3, you need to be getting shot at by more than AP1. You don't need to. But if you're getting shot at from that far away, it's usually with plasma. That's the list. Plasma or snipers that do mortal wounds and don't care anyway. The number of times that this could just stay on all of the time and it be relevant is minuscule. I think if I kept it on during all 10 games, I may have gotten maybe 8 rerolls for all 10 games if it was on all the time without me spending the command points. You just don't, there's never a reason to play this. Skulk about, retain a cover save when you're concealed. Retain a save when you're concealed. That's so much damage mitigation. It's automatic. I don't understand what the usefulness of this is. And lastly, the last strategic play that feels like a tactical play that's actually really, really good. This is stealth relocation. This is amazing. You do need to be outside of 6 inches of an enemy operative. On Into the Dark, you do measure around walls for that because it's not a zone. So if there's a door closed and you want to dash away from a door or to a door that's quote closed, you can do that. You cannot use this turn 1. Really wish you could, but it helps out a lot in so many different situations. If your heavy bolter is going to get shot with someone that's on the same ground floor, you can use it. You get to change your order as well as make a dash in the strategic ploy phase. This is really, really useful. You definitely want to try to use it before they use Call the Attack if it's Felgor, because they can call the attack, be within 6, and then suddenly you can't do this anymore. But outside of that instance, this is quite amazing. You have initiative and you want to get a charge off, dash forward. If you don't have initiative and you want to prevent a charge, if you're outside of 6 inches, you can dash away, and now that charge is unmakeable. You can definitely use it and manipulate the sequence pretty heavily. It's really, really great. This is one of those strategic plays that's so good. You pretty much pre-plan to use it turn 2, 3, and 4. It increases your mobility to get to your recon and infiltrate options for your attack ops. It increases your positioning. It fixes some positioning, and it counters people trying to position out of line of sight of your heavy guns, your heavy hitters, your snipers, and things like that. This thing is one of those ploys that if you're not using it, You need to ask yourself why. There's almost always a place to use it, and you need to be saying, why aren't I using it this turn? With the exception of turn 1, you're not allowed to use it turn 1, which is why you don't use it turn 1. If you could, you would. Because you would recon dash and then dash again to be forward. So now you're forward 6 inches. And now you can 3 APL that guy. So now that 6-inch forward operative can move, dash, throw a grenade, and determine a flank. Move, open a door, unleash heck into a room, etc. You need to ask why you're not using this. Thing's amazing. Tactical deploys add a little bit of spice to the team. And they're not really like auto uses, but they help out a little bit, and they all have uses. They all have very particular uses, but they all have uses. So let's get into them. First off, this is the one you're going to be using the most. This is a Stardies training. This lets you either double shoot or double fight. As long as one of those weapons is not a missile launcher or sniper rifle, you can double shoot or double fight. So the bolter leader that I started to gain some respect for, give him no cover, him double firing, hitting on 2s with a balanced reroll, pretty solid. Even your sniper can shoot his sniper rifle, and then after he shoots his sniper rifle, fire his bolt pistol. Because they do have a bolt pistol, and bolt pistol falls into the categories of guns that this can do. So you can double shoot a lot. This is one of those ones that you're probably going to be playing a lot. So it's just generally good. The flexibility is that you use it in the moment instead of being able to use it as a strategic ploy to let your whole team do this. I think this team needs to be able to make this a strategic ploy so that everyone can do the thing. If you're double firing, only 1 or 2 operatives is moving and double firing anyway. You can even restrict it so that if you double fight, you can't shoot. And if you double shoot, you can't fight. Like the Chaos Space Marines ones have. So I think that's what this team needs to really break out some of its flexibility, because it feels very rigid otherwise. The other 3 ploys, one is Raw Physiology, lets you ignore APL modifiers and lets you ignore being injured. It's the least powerful one, but being able to, this is the only way to get around stun for this team, and being able to use it on demand has its power in there. It just is a little rough to try to get off sometimes. I don't think I ever used it, but if you get hit with a really bad Felgor Pox Bomb, for example, you need that APL to move, dash, do a thing, whatever the case is. This is probably one of your best bets. Covert Position gives Super Conceal to your next activation. Who doesn't like Super Conceal? And because it's till your next activation, you can use it turn 1 and then activate someone else, use it on them, so you have 2 people with Super Conceal. Pretty solid. Lastly, there's Emboldened Aspirant. This lets you attain a crit if you're the first one to shoot or fight, or if you're taking on something that has more health than you. This is definitely not bad, and it's one of those plays that lets you push through the crits when you need it. In melee, it's either in melee or your sniper's getting a shot off, in my opinion. It's very solid. It also combines well with the heavy bolter if you're really fishing for those crits, but with the gun, I don't think you need it for the heavy bolter, but it's helpful to have. So all these have their uses. None of these you can forget about. The only strategic play you can forget about is the cover one. And this leads us into the faction ability. It's called Forward Scouting. It lets you choose 5 things from a list. Some of these are limited to 2 or 3 or 1, depending on what powerful they are. The only one that's you're allowed to take 5 of is the Redeploy. Redeploy does what it says on the tin. You redeploy your dude. You can recon twice, which you do. It's what it says is on the tin. You can infiltrate twice. You can diversion, which gives a -1 APL to a target, which can help with some board control. You can set up to 2 triple arms, which the first concealed operative that moves within 2 gets treated as engaged to the next activation. This does not get around Super Conceal. Super Conceal gives regardless of any other rules. So there are a lot of teams that just don't care about this or have enough operatives to run into this and then run away out of actual line of sight. So it's something to keep in mind about Triple Arm. Triple Arm, in my opinion, has dropped in priority a lot. Device Plan lets you Limit 1 gives you a CP at the start of the game, so you can start TP1 with 5 CP. Neat. Designate target gives your entire team relentless against a single operative. Really neat into elites. I didn't face that many, but this team also has a pretty good source of balanced and or cult ambush rerolls. So I never really found a great use for this one. And then here's one of the last ones that's an auto take in my opinion. This is Booby Trap. You select a point. It has to be outside of 6 inches of your opponent's drop zone, and then it also has to be outside of 2 inches of a objective. So you can set it, for example, outside of 6 of your enemy's drop zone, not on an objective, so the center of the token needs to not be on the objective. But the blast radius can cover part of it. So for this door, you could set it like here, and there's a door in here. So first person to come through the door would trigger the alarm and be stopped in here. If it triggers. The first time an enemy operative moves through it, you roll a d6, boop, and it does that many mortal wounds. And it stops them. So they would take 4 mortal wounds. And if they were dashing or charging through when you did this roll, it gets +1 to the roll. So this 4 becomes a 5, and that would do 5 mortal wounds. So this does anywhere from 4 to 7 mortal wounds. Since if you roll a 6, you get +1 to the roll, it's 7. And you can actually kill some operatives outright with it. The list of operatives you can kill with it is really low, but being able to stop movement and stop an avenue for people means that they get scared to go through this area. When really, they just need to eat it most of the time. If you're looking to counter scouts, plan someone to just eat this. Move a medic into it and then have the medic heal himself. That's a pretty simple way to do it. But yeah, it's one of those ones where you auto take it because it's just free damage to start. It's very useful. The faction tech ops, I'm not a big fan of these. They don't quite synergize well enough with the team, in my opinion. They do okay. Well, so the first one is Gather Recon, and I associate to Rob and Ransack. You have to be within 6 inches of an enemy drop zone. You do an action, and then that person has to live. So that's why it makes me think of action Rob and Ransack. It's doable. Doesn't feel easy, but it's doable. From all angles means you have to do damage from 3 of 4 table quarters, which means on Into the Dark, this is next to impossible because there are going to be avenues that you're either safe or you can't threaten from enough. So you're only doing damage from 2. So it just feels really bad on Into the Dark. Again, it's not impossible, but it doesn't feel great. And then the last one is Sudden Strike. This is neat, but requires setup. You have to get more kills than deaths in Turning Point 1. So you have to get a kill Turning Point 1. And you have to get more kills than deaths moving forward to get the second one. Marines count as 2, but even then, this isn't that easy. And you have to do it turn 1. So Into the Dark can just be zeroed out. A lot of the standard of 10 maps are just really rough to break through and get any damage done turn 1, so you just can't take this. I don't know. It's doable, but rough. The equipment, real quick. Frag grenade, crack grenade, smoke grenade, climbing gear. Those all make an appearance. Camo cloak lets you double retain cover saves. It's 2 equipment points. Targeting ocular is 2 equipment points. Gives you the no cover special rule. Extra blade, which is something you'll take on your hunter all the time, gives balanced reroll. So that's really nice. Combos with blade ambush if you really want to. It's also 2 equipment points. And then lastly is the heavy bolter bipod. This is unique to the heavy bolter. It's the only one that can take it, which is why there's no asterisks on it, because you're only allowed to take 1 heavy bolter, so that's all you're going to get with it anyway. If you haven't moved during this model's activation, you get Cult Ambush rerolls, so rerolls of a single die number. 5 attacks hitting on 3s means that if you're missing, you're rerolling 1s and or 2s. And just that many dice Cool. Let's say these are all 2s. Reroll. All right. These are all 2s. Now those are all hits. So if this was Overwatch, you would have selected all the 3s, reroll those into 4 hits instead of 1 hit. It's pretty solid. If you're taking the heavy bolter, you take the bipod. It's worth it every single time. And lastly, we'll reach the operatives. So above is a example roster. I didn't do an example roster. I need to do that. Oops. If you check out my Patreon, I have a summary up there that has an example roster. It has 2 bolter warriors on it. There's a reason for it, and we'll go over it. So the sergeant variant comes with either a shotgun, chainsword, and bolt pistol, and or bolter. The one you're going to take 90% of the time is going to be the chainsword one, since he has 5 attacks on 2s. He edges out the rest of the team. He's the most reliable melee operative into how many 8-wound operatives there are in the game. He does the work. Probably the one you're going to take. If you don't know who you're going to take this one. There is a case for the bolter sergeant when you give him no cover. Not in the recruit naturally, since the no cover doesn't do anything. But 4 attacks on 2s, full range, 3-4 is actually a very solid profile. Being able to shoot on 2s and double tap is a solid profile that needs to be respected. And so the reason why you don't need bolters on your roster for your 20-man roster is between your sergeant, your tracker who has a bolter, and your 3 heavy guns. That is 5 long-range operatives out of a 9-man team. That means you only have 4 operatives to be able to move forward and contest mid-board or deep objectives. That's usually not enough. That's usually too much shooting. Even if you go into Phobos, they have 4 shooters and then 2 reavers, if not more. So you don't really need that many shooters is the point. So that's your sergeant options. The hunter gets lethal 3 whenever he traverses or passes under a vantage point. So even if his footprint just goes from here through the door down below here, because his footprint passes underneath the vantage, he gets lethal 3 on his knife during his activation, which is very nice. I always pair him with a combat blade because getting 2 hits when you need 3 hits is one of the most depressing things ever, even if you have lethal 3. The tracker, like I said, has a long-range option. He also lets your team ignore obscuring against a target, and also lets one of your team treat an operative as if they are engaged if the tracker can get within 6 inches of them. Between your multiple options for recon and being able to move forward and select a guy, this is amazing if you can activate on a flank and really free up one of your heavy guns to bring someone down. Sniper hits on 2s, has a way to ignore his own obscurity, very solid. Heavy bolter with the bipod does heavy bolter things. Missile launcher, pretty solid. Missile launcher things. A lot of Legionnaire players were taking missile launchers for a long time. There's a reason for it, and then if you add gunfire ambush, it makes it even more powerful, which is pretty nice. The warriors come in a shotgun, a combat blade bolt pistol, and a bolter variant, just like your sergeant does. You'll almost never take a bolter because you have a bolter on the tracker. You have a bolter on the sergeant if you really want just a bolter profile. So a lot of the time you're going to be with warriors of either the blade or the shotgun variant, depending on flavor, taste, matchup, etc. And that's pretty much the operatives. So to sum up this team, if I had to give them a tier, I really feel like the team is a low C tier team, despite the 7-3 record. It's a really good record for 10 games, but the team is extremely difficult to pilot. To compare it, Into the Dark in the Pacific Northwest, for like Killteam Cascadia in that area, a lot of the players were not a fan of Into the Dark because Into the Dark requires a tournament level of knowledge to play Into the Dark, to play even casually. And this team requires you to have so much knowledge of a board state, turn 1, that it's very difficult to really pilot the rest and is not flexible. if you have a plan, you have to go through with the plan, and if your plan's falling apart, you don't have any way to recover it. So it's like so much of your board control manipulation is based on how well you understand the entire board state at deployment. Even high-ranked players have trouble with deployment period, let alone understanding an entire board state of not only what your team can do, but what your enemy's team can do. And if you misunderstand it, your triple arm gets outplayed, recons put you in a bad position, or your booby trap just gets baited out and never goes off. Just sits there in a position and never doing anything. And that can all be really frustrating. And a lot of your power and your board control is in that turn 0. So stealth relocation helps for the remainder of the game, but that turn 0 is vital for this team. It's just not enough flexibility, in my opinion. 9 activations is also not quite enough to contend with a lot of the melee monsters in the meta right now, the top-ranking teams. It's even not quite enough to deal with Harlequins, unfortunately, who just run circles around you. So do Corsairs. So it can feel really bad. You really need to have the basics down with this team to start going through. It's not forgiving enough. On the flip side of this, I think that if you are a mid-table person, mid-table player, consistently going 2-2 or 3-1 at your local RTT type tournament and want to get better at the game, that this is an amazing team to practice with. It's going to be like some training weights, but you're going to lose, but it's going to teach you a lot of the functions in this game that are important. It's going to teach you about action economy, because this is a strict 20 APL team. And if you lose your sergeant, you drop down to a 16 APL team, which is rough. Casterkin right now got so much hype when the buffs came out, and they are a 20 APL team, and the problem that people were facing is that they can't both kill and play the mission because people were not preparing to do both. They're still a really solid team. They can still place very well. They're just not quite efficient enough with their APL economy, and they need to be, or they start to lose out. It doesn't have the same APL that Colts, that guard blooded commandos even. Felgor even have better APL economy, specifically because they don't lose APL after you shoot them once. You have to do it again. It's a very hard stuck 20 APL team, and you really need to be efficient with all those APL to have a chance. You don't have any free missions. You don't have any free mission actions or actions at all. Everything you got to pay for through the teeth. So you in order to get casual wins with it, you got to step up your game with your APL economy. The second thing this team will do is recognize the importance of the right operatives at the right time. Shotguns sound amazing, but if your opponent charges you, shotguns only have 3 attacks, and now you start losing to devotees, to someone that has 2-3 damage. It's really nasty. And then if someone has double parry or any sort of duelist ability to pre-parry, you're just SOL. You just don't win melee. So I know there were a couple of games where I made this mistake over and over again. Making sure you're having the right operatives for the right situation. So you definitely want to be keeping an eye out for that. It's going to be pain, but it's going to be learning, and it's going to help. The other thing is the last thing is that it's going to expand your attack ops. This team only gets infiltrate and or recon. And those are not straightforward, easy to score. Seek and Destroy is straightforward, easy to score. You go, kill a thing, do the thing, done, cool. Having to divert APL economy in order to do either the actions or be in position to score aggressively, defensively, whichever the one case, if you're surging forward or if you're subverting control or taking their barricades, whatever the case you are, you need to be planning for that as part of your action plan from get-go. And doing that will expand your range of tac ops that you play, and it'll really help with how you can see the board state. So these are really things that are great for learning and getting better at the game in general. So the TLDR, this game is really good if you already know the basics and want to get in depth to APL economy and all the things I listed before. But it is extremely punishing for new players. Between deployment and the 5 options that don't give you any sort of recovery, if you're a new player, just stay away from scouts for now. Play intercession until you get the functions of the game down, and then switch to scouts when you're looking to expand your repertoire a bit. This is a great step 2 team. And unless something changes in a balanced data slate, this is March 21st that I'm recording this. It's going to feel like you're wearing train weights even to get any casual win. So go, train, get better, and fight. A couple of things that the team can do between the trip alarm and the tracker revealing people is if you can get into a position where you can reveal a guy that's on conceal, you can then have your heavy bolter or missile launcher, whatever the case is, get shots on them. This also combines well with how many recon dashes you get. Since it's a recon dash, it does get fly. So when you do it, you're just a bit cool. Let's not have 3D measurement on and have 2D measurement. Thanks. So you just dash forward here, 3 inches. And now because you ignore obscurity, anything from here anything that steps their base out past these lines, in this section, this is all threaded, this is all threaded, and this is all threat range that you can shoot. So the only safe section is like back here and here. Not a lot, and so it just provides a lot of power to control the board with a gun like that. You combine that with Fortify in your normal, it'll forecast you going Fortify if you put him up there, because then he could just die to a bolter if you're not careful. But putting him up there and looking for locations like this gives you a lot of power with the team. That combined with the triple arm to stop people from getting to objectives. So between the triple arm, the booby trap controlling someone trying to go through this flank, for example, just stop them from going over here, force them to go through the door if they want to do it. Or even just put this back here so that they can't go through the door. It's really, really annoying. And then you can focus your firepower and focus your efforts in the flanks that they can't get to. Again, this all comes from TP0 with the setup. And recognizing where you can -1 APL someone that they had previously planned on moving forward. Maybe it's someone with a dash up to here, trying to get forward for a crack grenade play, or even back here. If they're not a team with the comms, like there's a lot of situations where the -1 APL can determine a game, or at least determine their opening plan. And that's what this team needs to do, is they need to disrupt the opening plan, because they're not durable enough or flexible enough to recover a plan that doesn't punch through. And that was my experience with the team. It has power. Play it. Let me know what you guys think. And in the comments below, let me know what Legion you guys are painting yours as. All of my loyalists get painted up as word bearers. So my Phobos and my Intercession that I got through the ages are all painted up as word bearers, because I think it's funny to troll Space Marine players. So when I get my scouts, they'll be getting that paint job as well. Let me know what you think. Did you find this helpful? Lastly, if you're looking for any of the backups for these 10 games that I had, you can look them up at patreon.com/KiddoCrew Gaming. Again, it'll be in the description below. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, sub to the channel, tell me what chapter you painted your Marines. Next up, the votes are over, like I said. Next team to get played is going to be Wormblade, and I am actually extremely excited to play this team. They have a lot of tools. They got a really good change in the balanced data slate. I'm going to be playing them in my local games as part of a narrative campaign going on, where you can have not 1, not 2, but 3 operatives in hiding and not pay the CP for it, which I'm really excited for the narrative rules on that. But more importantly, playing them competitively, they're much better off than they were. I had a very recent game that was a very tight game, close, Colts into Wormblade, and I think that shows that this team can go really close to toe-to-toe with Colts, who's still considered a S and or A+ tier team. It's really cool to see. I think with the last round of balanced data slate changes, Colts are now a high A tier team in my opinion, but not quite that S tier that everyone's afraid of. Commandos are still S tier. They're still freaking amazing. But we'll see how it goes. So look forward to that. I'm really looking forward to playing those games and see how well they go. So comment below. And again, till next time, on to the next one. Bye.